is not what you know, it's what you can prove.
You know how to cut to the core of me, Baxter. You're so wise. You're like a miniature Buddha, covered in hair.
I want to become a guru so girls will like me. Then I will like myself.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules. Rule number 1. No touching of the hair or face.
Of course.
And that's it! Now let's do this!
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 145 of the Golf Guru Show. I'm your host, Jason Sutton, and I am the Guru. I'm the Director of Instruction at the beautiful Colleton River Club in Bluffton, South Carolina, where it is my mission to break down high performers in the teaching and coaching business in all fields of study, unpack and tease out what make them great and successful. Make sure you download this episode and hit that purple subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes that will be coming your way. All I ask is that you share the podcast on social and with other coaches and players that might benefit from the information. My guest on this episode is my friend Jake Toliver. Jake is the Director of Instruction at LA Country Club, host of this year's US Open. Jake is a superstar coach who was named by Golf Digest and was put on the Best Young Teachers list in 2021-22 and also 2023 and 24, and is on the Golf Digest Best in State list in 2022 and 23. In this conversation, we discuss how he turned his PGM internships from Penn State into opportunities at Bel Air Country Club and now at LACC, to his teaching philosophy and life philosophy, to his passion for mentoring and training, and for his love for surfing. Jake is such a talented instructor, but an even better human being, and his love for people, golf instruction, and the game of golf is infectious. So without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Jake Toliver. Jake, welcome to the show, man. I know we've been talking about this for a minute. It's good to finally connect and really excited to have this conversation. So thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled with this opportunity. I'm obviously a huge fan of the pod and a huge fan of yours. So having an opportunity to talk it up with you a little bit is huge. So thank you.
Absolutely. Let's first talk about, we're a couple of weeks removed from having the US Open at your place, which I think is like super interesting to me. It's like, so what's it like for the Director of Instruction to have a US Open or a major championship at their facility? Like, just take us through the week. It's probably, a year coming as far as like whatever you have to do and your role, but just give us some insight like behind the curtain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from a golf staff perspective, everyone's like, oh man, you guys are probably so busy leading up to the Open. The USGA kind of comes in and takes over. I mean, they do an incredible job. They were on property for, over a year prior to the event. And so they handle all the logistics and everything. You kind of have the opportunity to, as a staff, kind of choose where your responsibilities lie and how you can kind of contribute to the event. We chose to run the practice facilities. So our whole team was on the driving range all week, which was my preference. I mean, I just wanted to be able to walk the floor of the range, and take some video and chat with the coaches. And so that was my highlight, was just on the range floor. Got probably 8 hours a day for the full 7 days. And then I was walking the event. I was here sun up to sundown every day. So just feeling the energy and being there. I mean, you've been to tour events and I'm sure you've gotten to go down on the practice facilities and just chalk it up with the coaches and see the guys practice. And that was definitely the highlight for me. So as a Director of Instruction, yeah, you're just geeking out. You're just like, oh, look, there's Chris Como. What's up? And then just being able to talk to all the guys and then watch Phil Kenyon do his thing on the putting green and just little things like that. And practice round days, Monday through Wednesday, were actually the real special times. And then once the gun goes off, everybody gets really, really specific. They have so much intent in everything they do, and you're just staying out of their way.
What was your deal? Just like running the range and just making sure everything was taken care of on that end? Is that what your deal was?
Yeah. And I mean, our staff was picking and cleaning golf balls too. We had like 12 different balls. Obviously, everyone uses their own golf ball on the range. So we were picking them, cleaning them, sorting them, and then bringing them to the front and giving them to the players. So just kind of doing all of that, really. It was really fun for our staff to just kind of get back to our roots. Like, we've all driven a picker before, So it was really fun for us to do that together, and then obviously have the access to the range floor and be able to hang out in that environment as well. So yeah, man, it was cool.
So how was it? How was the vibe? Because I know that there was a lot of talk about that area, which is such a cool, it really came across awesome on TV. And so like, what was it like to be there as far as like, I mean, the membership, I know it was embracing it, of course, but anything you could share, like the players, any feedback that you got?
We're so close to it. I mean, we were really excited, and obviously everybody was a little bit disappointed with the scoring on day one. The golf course setup was really easy. The whole locations were kind of a joke, and the greens, we got a light rain shower at 8 a.m. that day, which never happens in June. So everything softened up a lot, and then they kind of had a field day out there. So there was a little bit of panic after day one, and then we got a lot of hate on social media, which doesn't help. You know, we're looking on Instagram, we're like, oh my God, like everyone's ripping on us. That was a little bit of like, got off to a kind of a rough start. The USGA did their thing, and they tightened things up and firmed up the greens a little bit and kind of made the whole locations a pace or two tougher in whatever direction they had to. And I think it really showed well for the rest of the week. So that was awesome. Just kind of watching that and watching how things kind of change and how they can alter, because they didn't know how players were going to perform out here. It was their first time. And so there was just a lot of learning going on from that perspective. The membership loved it. That was a massive success. The USGA took really good care of the membership. We had a big members tent where they could go and spend time all together, and they could bring guests into that tent. And it wasn't a tent, it was a freaking pavilion. It was massive. So that was really special. And then there were some really neat corporate hospitality applications and things like that that went extremely well. I think the downside and the big lesson that everybody learned was that we didn't really do enough for the general public. I think if you just bought a normal ticket, you probably didn't have as good of an experience. Walking the golf course is tough. There's a lot of corners of the course that are hard to get to. Those that spent their time in the corporate hospitality tents were blown away. And then those that had to walk the golf course and had a hard time waiting in line for a beer and a hot dog at the concession stand, that was probably not. That's an experience that will hopefully be improved for next time.
That's always tough, right? I mean, especially first time hosting, and you just don't know how the logistics are going to go for the average fan. But after running out with 2 10-unders on the first day, had to be a little tough, but then that's what won the tournament.
Yeah, so 2 8-unders and then 10-under won it. But yeah, both Xander and Rick ended up backpedaling a little bit. So yeah, I mean, the conditions got tough. We were freaked out with 2 8-under pars to start. We were like, holy cow, because we were thinking 10 to 12 was going to be the number. And so it's crazy how it worked out. And we had a great champion in Wyndham Clark. I mean, he was fantastic. He played his ass off and certainly earned his way there. So it was exciting to watch too.
That's super cool. All right, so let's get into your backstory a little bit. All right, take us through kind of where you grew up and then lead us into your time at Penn State and PGM, going that route. And then let's talk about your career and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town in Chicago, Glen Ellen, Illinois. Just grew up around the game. You know, I grew up caddying, playing at a public course, riding my bike to the private club, caddying there every summer. And then, you know, just really loved the game of golf and was looking to play golf in college, kind of going that route. And kind of when things started getting towards the end of the recruitment process, I didn't really love the opportunities that I had. I wasn't really in love with anything. I was kind of, with the help of my parents, kind of always thinking, hey, let's try to let golf get me into a school that I might not otherwise get into. Not let's go play golf just to play golf and go to a school that might not be the best decision for me academically or for my career. So I was kind of always thinking about it that way, and I didn't really love the opportunities that I had to play golf. And then I found out about the PGM program. I had a friend that went to Penn State, and I went and visited him and had a meeting with the professional golf management department and just fell in love with it. I had no idea that you could have a college experience like that. I was blown away. And so I finally felt like I really had a direction and I had something that really fit me. I could go to a big school, enjoy the football, join a fraternity, have a really cool college experience, but also be really focused on golf and explore a career in the golf industry. So I dove in head first, and I just can't even begin to explain to you how grateful I am for the experience I had at Penn State. It completely launched my career and set me up for success. And it was also just like an unbelievable experience.
Where'd you do your internships at?
So I went out to Nantucket Golf Club for a summer, which was fantastic. That was such a neat experience being out there. And then I went down to Cabo San Lucas for a semester, which was really interesting. Worked for the Discovery Land Company, which they are just unbelievable with how they run the show and how they do things. So I lived in Cabo for about 8 months, and then I went straight from there to Pebble Beach, which was terrific. Got to spend a summer at Pebble, and then I got to go back for my senior year at Penn State and had my senior year football season with all my buddies and everything. After that, I kind of half walked at graduation and then finished my final internship at East Hampton Golf Club out on Long Island. And that's where I kind of finished up as an intern and then became an assistant pro, went back for another season and had an awesome time there working for Tony Sessa, who at the time was also the co-head professional at Augusta National. Awesome head pro to work for, really particular, really high attention to detail and really good at developing professionals. So got to work for him. And then during the wintertime, I was going down to work for Jim McClain, who is absolutely far and away my biggest mentor and just huge influence on my life. But having the opportunity to kind of do East Hampton and then go down and work for Jim in the wintertime was what definitely kind of jump-started my career after college.
One of my questions is like, when did you feel like you decided you were going to go the instruction route? Was it spending time with Jim? Like, is that sort of the spark?
I think it was during internships and during my education at Penn State and just kind of like understanding the golf industry a little bit and starting to kind of find passion in teaching and in kind of watching golf swings and learning about the physical component and the biomechanics of it. And it's just kind of something that you're always striving to perfect and never achieving it. Something that you can spend your whole life working on and improving, and just like a neat craft. And so I just kind of fell in love with that and just helping people succeed. You like get your first guy who's slicing it to hit a high draw and you get that feeling and you're like, holy shit, that's pretty cool. I remember having that feeling for the first time while I was at Penn State and being like, wow, this is really cool. So I think I kind of fell in love with it there. I was really into it at Pebble Beach. When I went out to East Hampton, it kind of became clear that you needed a winter job. So I was like, well, I heard the Jim McClain Golf School is a pretty special place to work. So I reached out and was fortunate enough to become an intern there, which is a pretty rigorous process, as you may have heard. It completely changed my life.
You didn't just jump in there and start teaching? What do you mean?
Yeah, we were shoveling dirt and just about everything under the sun, watching a lot of golf instruction, setting up the range, answering phones in the office, you name it, but a really immersive thing and a pretty incredible experience.
I think it's the way to start, right? Like, you're just outside looking in, doing the little things that we probably all take for granted when we're getting all this stuff done for us, right? It's like, I know being an assistant for Jim is like a huge responsibility, but it's a privilege.
Yeah, it is a privilege because, I mean, mainly like you're putting yourself in this environment and you're seeing all these great coaches and you're seeing how they conduct business and how they fix golf swings and what their preferences are and how they like to set things up and how they analyze video. And you're just kind of sitting there like really absorbing. And then you get called out. We had Monday meetings every week at 7 a.m. and we were shitting our pants like when Jim would start the meeting, like, please don't call on me, please don't call on me. And you'd have to get up in front of everybody and, talk about pitching for 3 minutes or talk about hitting up on a driver or give an opening presentation for a clinic. And you've got all these eyes on you and these are all these great golf pros who have done this a million times. And you're just like, I mean, this is just not going to go well, but like, let me have it. Tell me what I did wrong. So that learning process, you just can't, it's just so hard to replicate that anywhere else, I think.
Do you have any good examples or stories of some Monday morning meetings that made an impression on you, like whether you had to do it or just somebody else?
I wish I had an amazing one that came to mind. I just remember sitting there drinking coffee, freaking out. But yeah, I mean, you remember or you find out rather how often you use little words as like hesitation and nervous tendencies. Like I would say, a lot. I would get up there and I would be like, and you just sound so unsure of yourself, but you don't realize you're doing it. I remember someone counted all my ums and he didn't tell me he was doing it. And then I finished my presentation. I thought I did pretty good. And he said, you said 59 times. And I was like, okay. So like little things like that. A couple other guys got chewed out pretty good. Fortunately, I never had that experience. But if somebody disagrees with you on something that you're saying, they're going to let you have it. And you're going to have to defend yourself or learn that, you probably weren't going about it the right way. So it's just been pretty interesting. We used to do a lot of like point counterpoint things too. So they'd put like me and you up there against each other and you tell them why fading is better. And I'd have to tell them why drawing is better and little things like that, yeah, you have to kind of build a case for yourself and arguing against another guy. And neither one of us is technically right, but if one of us is a lot better at explaining ourselves or seems a lot more confident, then we're going to win. So that was kind of a neat thing. A lot of little things like that.
Debating is a great form of learning, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That was just internship. I didn't know if you actually were an instructor there.
Yeah. So I did 2 seasons there. So my first one, I was an intern and I kind of turned into Jim's personal assistant there for a while because his assistant at the time had moved on. And so I kind of moved into that role, which was intense, and then became a certified instructor kind of simultaneously, and then went back for my second season as a certified instructor and taught. But then also when you're there, you just want to be there. I mean, even as a certified instructor, I was there helping the assistants out a lot. I was a young guy, so I was 22 years old. So I was still kind of helping the guys out. I was still there sun up to sundown. It's funny, like people ask me, oh, you lived in Miami. Like, what was that like? I'm like, honestly, man, I have no idea. I lived in Doral and I pretty much was at the club every single day, sun up to sundown. We didn't do anything. We were like,
you weren't down South Beach?
No, we were not down in South Beach. I remember a friend visited, one time I had someone visit and we went to South Beach and I was like, holy shit, there's a whole world going on over here. We were really into it, but we loved it. We wanted to be there. It was it was like grad school, but in like the most passionate way possible. We were just really fired up that we were in that. It was like a hotbed, like the talent code. And everybody there was a great coach that had great jobs up in the Northeast. And you just felt like every hour that you were there, you were learning something. So you'd rather be there than be sitting on a beach.
For sure. That sounds like you really took advantage of it.
Tried to. Jim might tell you otherwise, but
yeah, me and Jimmy are not super tight, but I can call him and say, "What is this actually true? How was he?"
Oh, he's the absolute best. I mean, he's like, I can't speak more highly of Jim. That might have been actually the highlight of my U.S. Open. I'll make him listen to this because he came and I set him up at like one of my best friends and best clients' house that he lives right behind our driving range. And so he hosted Jim at his house and I was just with Jim every day. I mean, it was fantastic. We took him around the whole property and got to watch a lot of golf together. He was doing Sirius XM on the range. So we were hanging out on the range together every day. And it was just such a fun thing getting to spend time with him. I've had him here at LA for golf schools. We've done golf schools here together for our membership. So he and I are really close and he's just had such a profound impact on my career and my life. He's just like, I mean, you know him. He's just an incredible guy.
So what are your kind of learning moments from him? Any stories that you can share? If like somebody said, what have you really learned from him?
By far, the most impressive thing about Jim is how inquisitive he is and how curious he is. You could just be talking to, like when I introduced him to clients of mine when we were walking the golf course, just members at LA. And, oh, you do that? Oh, tell me, what is it that you do? Why is that interesting? And he's like, really, what's the industry like? He just asks great questions. He's really inquisitive. He's really curious. And then specifically when it comes to golf, he's like, you're wrong until you prove me right. And so the way he kind of goes about, I don't want to say he doubts what people are saying, but he's not just going to take your word for it. He wants to find out for himself why you're right or why he likes what you're saying. And I think that that's really changed kind of the way I've gone about things. Because in golf instruction, it's easy to hear somebody say something cool and say, oh, yeah, that's great. I'm going to start teaching that. But he encourages us and he does it himself to kind of do the research and look into this stuff and find out why it works or why it doesn't and form your own opinions.
Yeah, that's, I think, the root of most top coaches, right? Make it fact. Seeing is believing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you get to LA? Talk about it. You said you had a good story about how do you make the transition? Because there's got to be a lot of things that happen.
And the reason I said that too, Jason, is just because I think it was like a defining thing for me coming out to Los Angeles. And I think that the way I went about it was just a little bit different. I was working for Jim in Miami and going from Long Island at East Hampton down to work for Jim and back up north and back down south. And I just kind of felt like I wanted to be rooted somewhere year round. And I love Los Angeles. I like to surf a lot, and I wanted to be somewhere where I could surf and golf year round, surf and teach year round. And so I kind of targeted Southern California, and I just flew out here, and I had some family out here that I could stay with. And I started reaching out to some head pros that I knew out here just through contacts that I had made in the industry so far, and just said, hey, like, I want to move to Southern California, whether it's San Diego or Los Angeles, or do you have any ideas for me? I just wanted to kind of learn about the different clubs out here. And so I had an opportunity to meet with Todd Yoshitake at Riviera and Dave Potus at Bel Air, among a couple others in San Diego and in the desert in Palm Springs. And I had an opportunity to meet with Dave Potus at Bel Air, and I just kind of treated it like an interview. I mean, it wasn't an interview. He was just giving, me the favor of his time to just chat about the industry. And I wore a blazer and went in there. We had a great talk, and he kind of left a lasting impression on me with the way he runs his club and the way they do things at Bel Air. And we just had a great rapport. And then went back to Florida, and then a month later he called me and said, hey, one of my assistants just left. You want a job? So it was just kind of a neat thing where I don't think I would have ever gotten the assistant role at Bel Air if I just submitted my resume. But the fact that I had just gone out and had a great chat with Dave, it just made all the difference. So I think that, like, the reason I wanted an opportunity to voice that was just that I think just submitting your resume for different jobs doesn't always cut it. You've got to figure out where you want to be. You got to get out there. You got to meet people. And I think that is just so much more powerful, right?
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's for the young coaches. We always get those questions, right? It's like, how do you open those doors? Specifically, like, how did you set up those meetings? Take us through that process.
Yeah, it's a great question. I just told Tony Sessa, who was my head pro at the time at East Hampton, I said, hey, I really like the idea of moving out to Los Angeles or Southern California. I'm thinking about going out there for just a little trip, just to kind of scope it out. Do you have any contacts out there that I may be able to meet with and just learn about the industry? Learn about how things work out there, learn about what clubs might be good for teaching, etc. And so he helped me get in contact with those golf professionals and set up those meetings. And I think a lot of it too was just like going through the internships and submitting my resume for internships and talking to head pros and kind of knowing how that whole deal works. And then having an opportunity to like go meet with a head golf professional, as they're not treating it like an interview, but I am. So I had the opportunity to kind of like show myself the way I want to be shown, but they're not like really asking me questions as if it's an interview setting. It's more of like a just get to know you kind of situation. So it's kind of a unique way to go about it, but I thought it worked well for me. And I think just not only that, but it came out to LA physically, and I got to see the area and see how things work, because I had no idea what it was like out here, certainly in the golf industry.
Is this when you started shadowing other coaches while you were out there, or was it just trying to like get there by any means possible and then figure it out?
No. So I just came out for like, I think it was 7 to 10 days just to meet with a couple head pros. I wasn't doing any shadowing. I was going right back to gym. But then once I got out here, so I got the job at Bel Air, and I hopped in my car and drove from Miami to LA, and then started my assistant role. And then that's when I started really observing. Went up to spend time with George Gankis, went down to Long Beach and spent a lot of time with Dana Dahlquist and a lot of guys. I mean, that's another thing that Jim harps on a lot, is spending time with great coaches, watching them do their thing. And that's been tremendously valuable for me. I mean, the time I've spent with George out here, priceless.
Talk about that a little bit. What are some good George stories, or what can you take away from your time spent with him?
He's incredible. I mean, he helped me so much just kind of find my own teaching style and just don't take it too seriously. I mean, you've seen him out there in flip-flops and backwards hat. And yeah, I mean, he's kind of rocks it with his own gig. He's just really comfortable, and someone just makes a big badass backswing and tops it. He's like, oh, that was sick. Like, it's totally different. And that changed because I was able to bring that to these private clubs that, hadn't really seen an attitude like that before. And I think I kind of already have that kind of personality, but having the confidence to be that way on the lesson tee was huge for me. And then it becomes so easy to express how you see things and build confidence in your students and establish like a more comfortable rapport, because a lot of people are just uncomfortable when they come to take a lesson. So if they're having a great time, then changes a lot.
So what about Dana? Probably exactly the opposite.
Dana's just a savant, man. I mean, he's so particular and he's so well versed, and he's just neat and tidy, and that's a really neat thing to observe as well. The way he analyzes video is really impressive. His attention to detail, particularly from face on, is really cool. I think he's probably the best face-on teacher I've seen, and I've learned a lot from him from that perspective. But yeah, I mean, it's just cool getting inside his head for a little bit. With all these guys, I'd always go and take a lesson myself and then show up early, watch the lesson before me, and then hang out and watch a couple after me. And just watching Dana draw lines on video and articulate things is really neat.
Yeah, I remember the first time I met Jim, 2001, I went to a seminar with him and his staff, and that's the first time I met Jason Carbone. And I remember what stuck with me was he introduced his staff, introduced Jason, and he said, yeah, I think Jason's taken lessons from probably the most top 100 teachers in the country. I was like, damn, that guy's like, it's not just like going observing, but if you actually take a lesson and observe, I think it's even more valuable from both sides of it. You learn so much more about it. You're basically taking that position of the student and the coach.
Absolutely. I mean, that's massive. I mean, and you're paying the coach the respect of like, hey man, like I want to get a lesson too. I don't want to just come and shadow you the whole time. I mean, I think I like that. Like I like when my assistants ask me for lessons, because I feel like it gives us a great opportunity to talk about stuff. It allows me to kind of improve their game a little bit, and then they can hang out. But if they just like walk up and say, hey, can I just watch you teach this lesson? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. But it's just a little different. Yeah, I definitely like it more when people take a lesson. I've always learned a lot more when I do it that way too.
Yeah, for sure. So talk about your situation now. I mean, it's cool how we sort of draw from our mentors and pass it on to our staff. Talk about your structure at your club now. I mean, I know you're talking about doing the meetings and doing some training. So go a little bit more in depth in like what you do at the club, and then we can get into programming and teaching as well. But I think I'm always interested in like how other clubs do it, and then kind of what your structure is. Do you have a staff that reports to you, or is it just the other assistants and head pros that you help?
Yeah, I want to hear about your organization too. I mean, it's kind of cool. As a director of instruction, it's just a unique role, and we've never had one here. So it was kind of an interesting opportunity for me to kind of shape it. And obviously, I'm drawing from my experience with Jim tremendously. I started while I was at Bel Air. I knew a lot of the guys here at LA, and then I was very thankfully asked to transition over here just because I was teaching a lot at Bel Air and they needed a good teacher here. And the way it was kind of framed was, hey, can you come over? And we would love to have a director of instruction here. We want you to start as an assistant and, work in the shop with everybody. And you're going to be the assistant golf professional and lead instructor. And we want to kind of work you towards the director of instruction. So it was a very natural kind of fluid thing where I started in the shop 5 days and then 4 days and then 2 days and then 2 half days and then full time. So it took just under 2 years. No, maybe 2 years. Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a really gradual process. I got to work with the guys and gals in the shop. Now I know how to run the POS. I know where everything in the golf shop is. I can help with inventory, like little things like that. I kind of know how things work, which I think is really important. Frankly, I kind of wish I still did it just because I enjoy being with the team more. But yeah, I think that's important, working with the staff and being in the trenches with them for tournaments and stuff like that. But anyway, so that was great the way it kind of gradually went. I'm really thankful for that. But now, yeah, we just built a performance center. I'm back here now. My office is here in the building, not in the golf shop, but in the performance center. We have got 7 assistant golf professionals, a director of golf, and a head golf professional. So we've got a big staff. So when we're doing teaching meetings, there's 10 of us. We do a teaching meeting every month, not every week like Jim did, but every month. And that's a lot, actually, for us to cram in. But yeah, we crank, man. I mean, we're open 365 days. There's not really a downtime. So we're always cranking. The only thing that really changes is length of day. The winter days are shorter and the summer days are longer, but we're still cranking. So yeah, we do a teaching meeting every month. We get everybody together. I just run it like a Jim McLean meeting. call people out, have them come up, do debates, talk about teaching trends, talk about new training aids. If someone just went up and saw George Yankus, I have them stand up and talk about their experience, what they learned. If someone just went to a seminar and everybody didn't get to go, each one of us that went will go up and highlight one of the people that we liked and stuff like that. So it's just kind of like if somebody learns, then everybody learns kind of a thing.
Do you give them a topic like prior, besides that piece of it? Like, how does that work? You just send an email and say, hey, you're going to be like leading this meeting. This is going to be the topic.
Yeah. Like if somebody went to a seminar, I'll be like, hey, during the teaching meeting, I'd like you to talk a little bit about it so that they're prepared. And then before the meeting, most of the time before the meeting, I'll send out a little list of bullet points on some of the things we're going to talk about. And then I'll be like, there's going to be a point counterpoint, but I'm not going to tell them who it is because they kind of have to be on the spot for that one. So like an example, one of our better ones a couple times ago, I had two guys go up and I had one of them argue only chipping with one club, like your 60 degree, and the other one argue using 9-iron pitching wedge, gap wedge, sand wedge, and lob wedge. So that was a really neat kind of thing to kind of debate and then get the rest of the staff involved. And so just little things like that where we can all get talking about something and we get two people that are up there a little bit more nervous that have to present on it. And then we'll talk about new products like, hey, Stealth 2 just came out. These are the shafts that are the OEM shafts. Got a great fitting bay now. So I'd like to get everybody in tune with new product, new shafts. This is the Stealth 2 Plus. This is the normal Stealth 2. This is why they're different, etc. Because we do all of our own club fitting too. Just little nerdy golf stuff like that, stuff that we all do. I just try to get them more interested in it. And it's been awesome, man. Our staff has really changed. I mean, when I started as an assistant and lead instructor, we had independent contractors that did all of our teaching. So all the assistant pros were just in the shop. They were just merchandising and running tournaments. And that was kind of how it was. And so now we've got all these assistants who are getting more into instruction. And I think we're a better team because of it. I certainly hope so. I love seeing the guys out there teaching and expressing interest in it. And I think if you're going to be a golf pro, I think having the ability to get out there and teach is huge.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's kind of the same situation at Colleton. Is like I don't have anybody that directly reports to me, but I try to help all the guys, our assistants and head pro, even our director of instruction does some teaching, which is awesome. And they watch me teach. I help them. I give them lessons. And
director of golf, you mean?
Yeah. When I say director of instruction. Yeah, director of golf.
So how many assistants do you guys have?
We've got 4 or 5, and we got some shop help. We have 2 golf courses and 2 clubhouses. So it's a lot of moving parts. So a lot of extra help, and then head pro at each clubhouse, and then the director of golf.
Can you take a golf cart from one clubhouse to the other? Like, are they combined in that sense?
I mean, it's not close. It's like 3 miles away. So it's about a 10-minute cart ride from one to the next. So you don't do it very often, but sometimes, depending on the situation, what's closed and what's open, airification schedules that are going on right now in our summer. This is like our off season. So we're dealing with a lot of that where one course is closed for 2 weeks and the other's open. But yeah, it's a big place, big facility.
It looks incredible, by the way.
Yeah, it's special. It's a postcard. I mean, both golf courses have just incredible views and on the water, on the river, and the marsh. It's pretty spectacular.
And then is there just one driving range for the whole facility?
No, there's one at each club. Yeah, so it's basically like 2 golf clubs. It's gated, so it's all enclosed, but just really spread out. So you just got a new teaching building. Sounds unbelievable. Talk a little bit about that, because I get this all the time, even though I wasn't there when my building was built. But it's like, what did you want in it? Like, what did you think was important? I know you dealt with Tim Cutsall, which actually built my building as well, so you can give him a nice shout out. But just talk about the process.
Like you and I were talking about before, we've got an unbelievable general manager and director of golf, and we were kind of all on the same page with how we wanted this thing to be laid out and how we wanted to bring it to the membership, and how we wanted to maximize member utilization and make it really fun, but make it golf focused. So basically, we kind of had an opportunity to start from scratch. We had Tim Cutsall run the whole deal, who is incredible. I've known Tim for a long time. He's done a handful of, actually probably every performance center that I've ever worked out of. He's the best in the business. And so we had him come out and help us with all the technology and the turf. And we had an architect that kind of built the building, and he and Tim kind of worked hand in hand to get the job done. But we have 3 hitting bays and a putting studio. And then there's a little lobby area centered behind the 2 main bays. And then the two main bays have glass walls that separate them from the lobby.
That's nice. So you can actually view people taking lessons.
Right. And then we have the opportunity for catering to come in and do special events where you can rent out the bays. You get 12 of your buddies, bring down some pizza and wings and put a football game on and play Pebble Beach on the simulators. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if Pebble Beach is on TrackMan simulators, but TrackMan's got like 130 golf courses. And so we use all TrackMan. The TrackMan simulator stuff is fantastic. And so we've got that kind of great little lobby area centered behind the two main bays with the glass wall. So that's great. And when you're in the hitting bays, the glass walls kind of double as mirrors. You can rehearse your swing and look back into the glass, which I think is phenomenal. So that was a really great dual purpose. And then the third bay is our fitting bay, which is like floor to ceiling shafts and heads, which came out really nice. That's a terrific deal for fitting. I mean, you walk in there and you're like walking into a true spec. You have all your shafts and heads there and you got TrackMan going, so you can kind of fine tune everything in the same hitting bay. And then behind that is our putting studio. We've got a Zen movable green stage, which is phenomenal. It's controlled by a tablet, up to 10% grade in any direction. And then the putt view projection on top that kind of projects the line and speed of the putt onto the green. So we've had a lot of fun with the putting studio. Put a Sam Putt Lab in there as well. And then we've got all the putters kind of lining the walls. So when you walk in, you've got Odyssey, Scotty Cameron, TaylorMade all around the wall. You can kind of grab a putter, hit some putts. It's incredible. It's really good.
Mine's pretty good, but I need that piece. I would love to.
It's so fun. The putt view is really special. I mean, that thing's incredible. Yeah, Guru, when are you coming out, by the way?
It's whenever you invite me, dude. I'm ready. Let's do a school.
Well, you're invited. You're invited. Let's go. Let's do a little golf school.
I would love that, man. That would be super cool. I was out there at TPI a few years ago. It's the only time I've actually been to Cali, and was going to go visit Dana, and something came up. But San Diego and that whole area is just so cool, man. I would love to spend some time out there.
Yeah. I mean, you come see TPI and then you drive up. You can see Dana. You could come to a golf school with me here. Go see George. We'll give you the royal treatment.
That would be fantastic. So let's dig into your teaching a little bit. I know you've got extensive background in technology. I know you use SwingCat. Obviously, you talk about Putt Lab, but let's talk about Full Swing a little bit, right? So describe some of the things that you do in a lesson. Let's say a first-time student. Kind of take us through what you think is important, and can kind of lean on some of the things that you're using technology-wise, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. I think when I get that question, the first thing I think of, Jason, is P2 and P6. Like, I'm really big at getting the club great at shaft parallel, and I won't let anybody get past that. Like, if someone sinks at P2, I'm like, all right, let me just give you this framework here. Throw an alignment stick on the ground. And that's a lot of that's from Jim. I mean, position teaching. Sure. Some people will be like, oh, yeah. Some people will be like, oh, position teaching, oh, that's garbage. Look, you're going to stop the video at some point. You're going to take a look at the golf swing. And, that's right. Positions are really, really good to teach people and rehearse. I'm huge on rehearsals. And then I like to get in there. I like to hold the golf club. I get in there when they're at address, and I hold it, kind of right where the grip meets the steel. And I'll help them get to P2. I'll talk to them about their grip and how important a flat left wrist is at P2. Or, if they have a little bit of a strong grip, kind of educate them on how it's probably going to be a little cupped at 2. Or if it's weak, it's going to feel like it has to bow a little bit, or whatever it is, and kind of educate them on what a square club face is. I mean, I'm out here in the trenches, man. Like 80% of people move it with the face too open. So I'm like shut the face and rotate. That's me all day.
Yeah, I think that probably answers the question better. Like, what kind of what's your style, right? And you're right along. How I teach, and I'm the same way. I'm getting in there and moving them around, and so that's cool. So continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's perfect.
No, it's good. It's all productive. But yeah, man, I get a lot of people to shut the face and turn better. It's not to say that I'm doing that to everybody, but I find that a lot of people hit it much better with a little bit of encouragement in that direction, keeping the face more on spine angle. But I mean, I've got a lot of classic swingers who are ballers who move it a little bit open and throw it a little bit at the bottom. And I love that too. I think you got to coach the player in front of you. I'm big into TPI. I love everything that Greg and Dave have done. I've gotten close with them over the years, gone through all 3 levels of their certifications. So I try to screen all my players. Keyword try. Some of them aren't as into it as others. But I think having a up-to-date physical screen is really important. What else about philosophy, man? I mean, I use Coach Now. I try to send them a video at least after every session, if not a couple. I definitely like to kind of sneak in. Like, I'll start filming them. I'll be like, oh, yeah, you just hit that really, really well. Tell me a little bit about that. And then I'll just kind of film it. And then they're like, yeah, I just hit that so well. I just felt like I was doing this. And then I kind of shifted into my lead side. And then, and they're demonstrating it. And then I'll just be like, bang. And then I'll just send it to them. So just trying to get stuff articulated in their own words.
So you're using TrackMan, obviously. You're using Swing Catalyst.
Yeah.
How does that work during your lesson? Are you measuring pretty much every swing? Does that happen like at the beginning? Like take a process of like a typical. Are you doing mostly hour lessons? Would you say?
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too. Formatting golf instruction is just such a challenge.
It's my show.
No, I know, but you're the guru, man.
I'm kidding.
People want to hear the guru, bro. I'm just saying, like, formatting our deal is just so tough. It's like you want to get away from the hour lesson, but it's just, I do the hour lesson, Jason. I do 8 hours of them every day. I try not to.
So do I.
But it's, we use TrackMan in almost every lesson, but sometimes I don't. I mean, sometimes I don't at all. It totally depends. And then the plate, I use the plate probably 30% of my lessons, maybe 40%. Yeah. But it's freaking remarkable, dude. Teaching on Swing Cat is unbelievable. And I'm really jazzed about that right now.
Yeah, talk about what you've learned with that. We all have preferences, right? I mean, I think, if you ask me like what I've learned about using the ground, I could tell you like probably more about what I don't like than what I do, right? Because I know it depends. That's a big word. But like, so what are some of the learning moments and maybe some of the things you look for?
Yeah, I think like I love vertical force and I love like getting someone to peak their vertical force at shaft parallel in the downswing. And I love seeing the result when they do. Like that is my favorite thing. Because most people are just terrible, And so if you can like amplify their vertical force by 20% and get it to hit a shaft parallel, they just smash it. So that's exciting. I've spent a ton of time with Scott Lynn. He's a really good friend of mine. And he lives right here too. He's awesome. And so he's, I spent a lot of time with him in his garage before we got a Swing Cat. And then we've had him out here on our plate, and he's brought his thumb drive over and gave me all of his, not all of his, but a handful of his tour swings. And so he and I chalk it up and look at stuff. And I mean, I don't know, you can get on like 50 different tangents about ground force, but I love the application of vertical force. I think that, you can tell pretty quickly if somebody uses lateral force well or if they don't. You need to be pretty keen on how much they load into their trail side and if that amount is good for them or if it's not. And you can kind of start to get into leg dominance a little bit if you want to. I don't know. I haven't had a ton of success in that, but I know a lot of people do that. What are your thoughts on leg dominance?
Yeah, I used to do that test Scott's been on the show, but I used to do the test of hitting so many shots off left leg and so many shots off right leg. I thought it was interesting. Yeah. I've kind of gone away from that. I don't know. I'm not sure I can give you an educated answer on that, but again, it just kind of depends on how they're loading and the timing. I think it's more about the timing of the pressure.
Absolutely.
Right. And then spending a lot of time with John Tattersall, which is one of my good buddies, like I'm looking a lot more at frontal torque now, a lot more of the cartwheel stuff than rotation. Especially with good players because they're all going to rotate. That's been very helpful.
Can you explain frontal torque a little bit?
Yeah, it's more if you think it's like the frontal plane. Like it's basically if you just turn. It's tough. Back to the not having video on a podcast, but it's like it's going this way. Like, think about doing a cartwheel. That's what James Lights
it's like the rock, like Mark Blackburn calls it the rock and roller, right?
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's kind of tough to explain on a podcast, but it's you got verticals, you got rotation, and then you got the frontal torque, which is basically straight up and straight down, like side bending both directions. That's probably the easiest way to think about it, right? So extending more in the backstroke,
right, like
which creates tilts, right? Creates more tilts, especially with the pelvis. Like most people, they stay in forward bend too long, or they start flexing their trail leg too long or too early. That's one of the big things I think that just kills speed, right? So getting them to extend and almost feel like they're standing up in the backstroke is super important to like creating speed. And then the same way in the other side is basically pushing up with the lead side. I call it the gas pedal move, which actually starts to rotate you, and like it does a lot of the rotational forces and torques that you don't have to really think about, because people are trying to turn and they miss the like your vertical stuff that you're talking about on Swing Cat.
That's spot on. I think that's cool. I haven't even really delved into frontal plane torque. I think that, Swing Catalyst just calls it horizontal force. I know like Gasp and some of those other ones title it differently, but it is interesting. I mean, the precision and how sharply someone shifts laterally in the transition has a big impact on speed.
100%. Yeah. I'm getting ready to hopefully get Smart to Move.
Yeah.
Is what I'm going to get. And it does a nice job of kind of illustrating that piece of it, which I think is super cool.
That's good stuff, man. I mean, you just learn so much from seeing the graph. And you know what else is cool is just having a student who you've had for a long time, and they've just had this little tendency that you just, you've worked on it, but you don't really, really fully get it. And then you see them on the pressure plate and you're like, that's what it is. It's like an MRI machine. It's like, oh, okay. That's how you're doing that.
Yeah. It's confirmation, right? It's like, the Smart to Move guy came out and did a demo and the other day, and I had one of my tour players in there, and I don't have pressure plates right now. And I'm like, all right, I just want to measure, because we're working on a ton of body pivot stuff. And I know it's creating speed because I'm seeing the speed go up in TrackMan, right? But it validated kind of what we're doing and why it's happening.
That's great.
It's more of kind of backing into the solution and just validating like, okay, this is actually making a difference in the right way. But the timing of it is so crucial to when all that stuff happens with the ground.
Dude, I had a guy today that I had played a round of golf with him, and he's my student, and I was just giving him shit because he's a really good iron ball striker and he doesn't hit his driver very far. He carries his driver like 262. And I'm like, dude, you need to be carrying your driver 285. And I knew he didn't really hit up on it, and I knew he was kind of hitting this little kind of spinny fade, and I'm like, all right, we're working on driver today, and I wasn't on the force plate. I was on the front of the range, and I had TrackMan out. And he hit a couple drives, and I was like, all right. And I didn't even film him. We worked on his iron swing, and we have not worked on his driver swing. New student. So his iron swing's great. And I'm like, and then we played a couple holes together the other day, and I'm like, we're doing driver. And so I see him hit a couple on TrackMan. He's hitting like level, and he's hitting like this kind of Healy cut. I'm like, all right, dude, here's what we're doing. And I just start coaching him just massive vertical force, right? And then all of a sudden he just starts he's hitting it terrible. And I'm like, oh God. So I clock around and I film him face on, and I'm like, oh my God, like he's pushing really early for his vertical force. Like no one does that, by the way. Mm-hmm. No one pushes too early unless they're really, really athletic. And he happens to be really athletic. And so I'm like, oh my God, like I just totally jumped to this conclusion. He's my last lesson of the day. I'm like, I got to get on the Golf Guru show. Like my priorities are elsewhere right now. Like, dude, you're jumping off the ground. Right. And I didn't I just jumped to this conclusion on my own, and I didn't film him first. And then here you go. He's jumping way early. And I'm like, if I had him on the plate, I would have been able to see the timing, and I would have been like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And I would have approached it differently. But I kind of jumped to that. And obviously, we've done so many golf lessons, you can quickly kind of recorrect and be like, okay, all right, let's gather ourselves here. But yeah, it's really powerful to have the data and kind of see when they're pushing and how much. The timing of it is crucial.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the kids, like a lot of my elite juniors, they get off their trail sides so quickly.
Yeah.
And then everything's like lagging behind, like their arms and their upper body are stuck behind them. They can't get the club back into the ball. So it's like sometimes you got to slow them down.
Yeah, and you would kill to have one of your older guys shift that quickly.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, that's 10, 20% of my clientele at this point. But it's kind of cool. It is cool to like just at least get them on there and show them and, create a feel with the movement and go, okay, here's what we're looking for. So it's massive. I'm excited to get it. I've been a body track guy for a long time. I'm not super excited the direction that's going. That's another topic, but yeah, I've learned a lot just from working with pressure plates.
Well, it's cool. And like, I remember I texted you because you were doing something on body track on your show. And I was like, dude, ask him if he thinks that when the COP trace on body track backs up, that's like the application of vertical force. And that was before I got a swing cat. That was like a couple years ago when I texted you that. But I just remember, like, I used to teach on body track when I was at Bel Air, and I was just kind of frustrated with it because, like, even for myself personally, like, I think, well, shit, that's probably why I love vertical force too, is because I'm a big, like, I had a Z trace on body track, and I was like, I could not get my trace to not back up even with an iron shot. I like could not get it. And I was like, this thing's stupid, But then, like, now having swing cat, and understanding like how the application of vertical force and torque force changes the COP trace, it's like, of course. And so I think pressure's great. Pressure's great for short game, actually. But you gotta see ground reaction forces if you're really gonna like coach power and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to go on a tangent a little bit here because I'm curious. Like, how do you learn to surf when you're in Chicago? Like, I understand where you're at now and like how much you do it. But like,
I didn't. I grew up being obsessed with like skateboarding and snowboarding, and like surfing was like the epitome of that, And I was just dying to do it, and I didn't even surf till Pebble Beach. Shout out Andrew Kegerice.
Okay.
Do you know Andrew Kegerice?
Oh my God. Dude, I think I just met him on the beach the other day.
He's in North Carolina. He's a North Carolina boy. He's up at Fisher's Island.
Yeah. I just met his dad. Does his dad own a billboard company?
Maybe. Anyway. Kegerice, yeah. He's a terrific golf professional. Yeah. He's the head pro at Hay Harbor right now. He's a North Carolina guy. He and I were, doing our internship at Pebble, and we're like, we're going to learn how to surf. So we bought a board and we went out there, and we literally shared the board. Like we both had a wetsuit, and we were just like go out there and he'd surf and then I'd surf. It was hilarious. But that was 12 years ago. And then I surfed, when I worked at East Hampton, I surfed in Montauk on Long Island. And I made some great friends out in Montauk that taught me how to surf well. And then moved out to LA. And when I was working at Bel Air, I was an assistant. So I got to surf a lot, and I was single. So I surfed a ton, and, I've been out here for 10 years now. So yeah, used to surf a lot. Now I have kids. I don't really get to surf that much anymore.
I'm not going to share that passion with your kids?
Oh, no, of course I am. It's just they're in diapers right now. They require a lot of my time, Jason.
I know they're young.
Especially in the mornings.
Yeah, I feel that, buddy. It hasn't been that long.
Trust me.
Tomorrow they'll be 25.
The minute my wife will allow it, they will be in the water on a surfboard.
Oh, my gosh. All right, so you ready for a couple quick hitters before we wrap?
Yeah, of course.
All right, so give us some of your book recommendations that have affected your career.
The 8-Step Swing by Jim McLean is my favorite golf instruction book. It's the one I always gift to colleagues and assistant pros. It's phenomenal. It's kind of my Bible. I mean, I always, you open it up and you're like, oh, I was just doing that the other day. It's just great. I mean, there's so much good information in there, great photos. He's just done such an awesome job of illustrating different checkpoints in the golf swing. And it's one of those books where you can just open it up and read the page and learn something. So I think that book's phenomenal.
Anything non-golf related?
I'm not a big reader, Jason.
It disappoints me, man.
The Alchemist. Is that what I'm supposed to say? That's a good book.
You can say whatever you want. That's great.
What are some of your favorite non-golf related books? I can learn from this.
Think and Grow Rich was a good one. I mean, golly, maybe there could be, oh geez, we don't have enough time. I've got a whole library in my learning center of stuff. Anything from Tim Ferriss, Tribe of Mentors is a great one. The 4-Hour Work Week, Servant Leader. We could go on and on.
I just wrote all those down. That's terrific. What should I start with?
Start with Think and Grow Rich. That'd be a good one for you to start.
That's the first one on the list, so that's where I will begin. I'll be done in about 2 years. I'll let you know how I liked it.
I was going to say, yeah, it's 1937, the original self-development book that led Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and Dennis Waitley and all these other guys to like start creating these companies that do all these motivational talks and speaks and, you know, speeches. Zig Ziglar, anything. It's more programs now. I would say probably if you don't like to read, just go listen to programs from any of those guys. Timeless.
Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn.
Yeah, Jim Rohn. So can you discuss any of your famous clients at LACC, or like who that would be?
No.
Can you confirm that Hugh Hefner could not get into the club?
I don't know. I have no idea about that. I mean, the mansion's on the 14th tee. It's right there.
I know. I've heard some really good stories from a few of my professional clients about that.
Yeah. You can walk over and see the monkeys. That's
what I heard. Yeah. I heard that he tried to buy his way into the club and they would not let him in, which I thought was pretty awesome. All right, here's another one. What purchase of $150 or less has positively impacted your life in the last year?
That's a good one. Wine.
Okay, there you go. We can talk wine.
But you know what? I mean, $150, you could buy 15 alignment mirrors. I'm not going to say eyeline because they're more expensive, but you could buy 15 $10 alignment mirrors on Amazon and give them to 15 people, and that would change your career as a putting coach. I'll tell you that.
Ooh, okay. We could debate that.
Really? What else? $150. Speed sticks are probably around that. Super speed. Those are fantastic. I use those with a lot of my clients. Maybe Blast Motion. I think that's $150.
You like Blast?
I think Blast is great. I don't use it that much, but I think it's a great tool. All
right. So when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused or have lost your focus, what do? What are some of your tips and tricks? Surfing? Or is there something else?
Yeah. I mean, surfing's an incredible way to be with yourself and be in nature, be with the ocean. It's unbelievable. Paddleboarding is a little bit more relaxing. I like to paddleboard a lot. I don't do that anymore either. I've got a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old daughter at home. So these recreational, all these fun things that I used to do, not a ton.
You'll have to revisit that probably another 8 to 10 years.
Hopefully just another couple months. I mean, we've got a newborn, so that's pretty gnarly, but we're almost out of the weeds on that one. But no, I think I remember you asking this question to George Gankis, and I loved what he talked about, and it left a lasting impression on me about being present and looking up and out and looking at the trees and the leaves and just taking a deep breath. Breathing is huge. I think like just in our industry, and then obviously in the game of golf, you just experience like a lot of like difficult moments, and you get so good at overcoming those. I think it really builds our character and our ability to handle life.
That's well said. I like it. Yeah. So, I mean, if you have any free time at all, like what are you doing? Right. It's like you may not have it any right now, but any other little hobbies that kind of keep you, I guess, not so much grounded, because I don't think it's even possible to have balance in our industry, but.
Oh no, I don't know about that. I mean, I think that we're busy and we give a lot of our time to others, but that makes me full, man. I mean, I do feel like I have balance. I mean, I like spending time with my family, my wife and my daughters. That fills my cup for sure. And then I'm really into extracurriculars. I mean, I think you got to have something that you're interested in. I love surfing. I love paddleboarding. You know, my whole mantra is golf and surf. I mean, that's like, you know, those are, and I love golf. I love playing golf, by the way. You know, we are on a golf podcast. I love playing golf. And so if I have a day off,
how much do you get to play with your members?
I try to play. I mean, I try to, when life is normal, I try to play 27 holes a week. That's 18 holes on Monday. And then that's 9 holes with a member, a client, or our junior program. I set up a bitchin' junior elite program here at the club, and we play 9 holes every Friday afternoon with our elite juniors. And that's
cool.
That's an awesome deal, man. I highly, highly encourage any golf professional listening to this to do that. Every Friday afternoon, we get all the elite, anybody who can break 40. If you can break 40, that's the prerequisite. You have to do it with either a member of the junior elite squad or a golf professional. And once you've done that, you're in. We play every Friday afternoon. We bring out college players from UCLA and USC and sometimes Pepperdine. And we bring out the gals too. UCLA gals will come out. And we just play 9 holes, and we play little matches, and we do little challenges, and we just get them on the golf course with players that they can emulate. And our assistants love doing it. The kids get so much better. I mean, they're so good at imitating. So that, and it's been a great way for me to play. I mean, it gets me on the golf course for 9 holes a week.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, environment's so important, right? Especially for those kids. If you can get them around good players like that, it's really, really great. That's so cool. Can you briefly talk? I know this is one of the questions I had that I forgot. Just briefly talk about your programming, like you don't have to go into detail with cost, but just like your basic structure of like, how do you program stuff at the club?
I mean, I think about this all the time, Jason. I want to hear about yours too. I think we need to talk more about it, like just our whole community, and kind of figure out how everybody's having success, because it's tough. I mean, I just do primarily 1-hour lessons. I do a lot of on-course stuff. I encourage folks to do 90 minutes when we go on course. So probably one of my lessons per day will be 90 minutes. And then I've got a couple guys who like to do 2-hour sessions. So I'll do probably like 3 or 4 2-hour sessions a week, try to get guys on the golf course. And then programming, I do a 6-for-5 lesson package that's just been a smash hit. It's just like a nice price point for people where you pay up front, you buy 5 lessons and you get the 6th one free. And I keep track of it on a spreadsheet on my phone. I've probably sold like 200 of those things. And it's great because it kind of allows the student to make an investment in their game. You know, a lot of people are looking to say, hey, I want to make an investment in my game. I want to have a plan. And so they make that upfront investment and they feel like they're in it, you know, and then it's also a value add. Obviously they get a free hour. So, and then you have an opportunity to kind of break down a plan for them. So I do the 6-for-5 packages a lot. And then I do a coaching program that is, it's like, it looks great on paper, but you just don't do it that much. It's like 6 hours of coaching and 2 playing lessons. You have an initial evaluation and you take notes on the initial, you watch and play 9 holes. And then the way we structure it is I have a sheet that like myself and all of our pros use. And you basically assign each part of their game its own handicap. So I'm like, okay, Debbie, you're a 10 index. You are a 14 off the tee, but you're an 8 with your irons. you're like a 9 chipping, but you're like a 20 in the bunker, and your putting is, a 5. You're a great putter. And so you kind of assign an index relative to your other players on their ability to perform each of those tasks after an on-course evaluation and kind of a session where you can see each part of their game. And then you can kind of target what they need to work on to lower their index as a whole. So that's kind of like a total game approach. I find myself just doing that with my clients anyway, but that's like kind of our coaching program. And if people want to make that investment and do kind of that, that's like a whole package where there's like a beginning and an end and you tie a bow on it. But I just don't find myself doing that much. It's actually not great for me financially either. So, and the students don't really gravitate towards it. People at a country club, I just find that people just want to take lessons.
Yeah, I get it. I appreciate you sharing that. That's very similar.
I mean, what do you do? Do you have success in?
I've gone kind of the same direction. I mean, at my previous club, I did a lot of long-term coaching programs. I did like a Biggest Loser. I did, a lot of supervised practices that were attached to like a program that were pretty good. And then again, it's like it kind of ran its course. And then now I'm sort of back to more like you. Like I do 5 hours, 12 hours, and I do a 3-month unlimited. Right.
I've heard you talk about that. Do you have a lot of success with that?
Yeah, I do. It's but you don't take a bunch of the unlimiteds, right? It's like, and you have to, and I sort of interview people, right? It's like, I'm not going to put just anybody in that program if they're not going to, 1, be able to use it, and 2, it's just not the right fit. So, and I only take 3 to 5 of those per season. Like as far as we have like spring, like right now, like midsummer is kind of our off season because it's so hot and people are traveling back up north. So it's like we have a real busy spring and real busy fall and winter. So it's like just managing how many you're going to put in that program is important. But that it allows me to spend a lot of time on the golf course,
right?
Which I try to do. A lot of playing lessons and as many as you can do. As busy as we are on the golf course. But yeah, it's kind of similar. Just a different 3 levels of kind of their commitment. But I think it, like you said, you get a little bit more buy-in from the player if they buy a chunk and like, all right, well and then you sit down with them and. Just like you're doing with your coaching deal, it's like, all right, here you are. Here's where we want to go. And we'll have constant check-ins of like, where are we? And I get them to keep stats, the serious players that will actually keep stats and start to like take accountability of like each part of their game.
I just think that like, that's what it is. It's accountability. And it's hard to teach that. I mean, my guys and gals that really get better, it doesn't matter what structure their program is. Like they're accountable and they're really focused on it and they practice.
They're doing the work.
And they show up early and they show up early for their lesson. They warm up. And by the time I get over to them, they're like, all right, I'm so pumped. This is what I want to work on. I shot X last time I played. They already texted me their scorecard and we already texted about it a couple days ago. So like I know exactly what's going on with them. And I can say, hey, look, I really want you to do this putting drill and this pitching drill and send me your score by next time I see you, and they'll do it. And other people just aren't like that. And it doesn't matter what program I have them in. It's just, it's the personality type. That's what I've found. And so I have I don't know, for us, we get so busy. It's really hard to like sit down and write up a program and hold to it and keep it going. And then it's like, it's hard to justify because it takes a lot of extra time. And for me, it's about the time, I mean, if I can just show up and give 8 great lessons and then go home and get home for bath time. I mean, that's, and I'm fully present and I'm so engaged in my lessons, but the administrative work on the side is not a strength of mine. So, I always dream of having like an assistant that I can work with and have that kind of thing going, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, me too. That's the dream. And the other thing I do is I do weekly ladies clinics.
Yeah, which is awesome.
I do a co-ed. Yeah, and I do co-ed clinics every other Saturday or so, and with more intense putting schools and then, short game schools like that. But I mean, your bedrock's going to be your one-on-one time. And
and we do, like, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we do a monthly clinic series, and I'll always get an assistant involved and have them kind of be like, all right, look, this is your deal. What do you want to do? Bunkers. Okay, great. Make a flyer. Let's work on it. And then I do half of them. It just depends on the amount of demand. I love doing them. I just like getting the guys and gals in charge of it themselves. And then I'm kind of there as their backstop. Like if I can contribute and help out the ratio, then I'm there, and I do it like half the time. But I love doing clinics. I used to do so many. And then I do guest instructors. I try to do one a quarter, bringing in guys. We're bringing out Dr. Rob Neal next month. Yeah, the guru. I'm telling you,
Come
man.
on.
Let's go, baby. 2024.
Yeah.
But we like, I bring out Preston. He's coming out in September to do some aim point and some putting. And then we got Dr. Rob Neal coming out in August to do some 3D stuff. So, and I've done schools with Jim, and who's fabulous is Parker McLaughlin. Have you had Parker on, Short Game Chef?
I have not. I think I've reached out and he hasn't got back to me, but I know you're talking about.
I'll link you guys up. He's fantastic. He's really good with the members, and I love his short game stuff. But I know you like James Ridyard.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's my guy.
You gotta find like a loyalty in a short game coach, and you're like, all right, I like that guy. I like what he's doing. Yeah,
for sure. It's helped me a lot. And I'm so much better because of it.
Yeah.
So proofs in the results.
Absolutely. It's good to have like a framework for coaching short game,
Oh yeah, for sure. All right. So last question, you know what's coming. You ready?
I'm ready.
So if you had to get a message to the world, to billions of people, put it on a billboard, what would your message be and why?
I know this question. I listened to the pod. My answer is most fun wins. I think that, that's what I tell people when they're like, how you get that guy walking by you. They're like, all right, I'm about to tee off. You got a tip for me? Just say, have the most fun in your group, bud. I think if you're the one having the most fun, you're probably going to play great, and you're probably going to have a good time. And I think that's how I try to live my life and how I try to kind of inspire my students. I think you got to be the one that people are cheering for out there. You got to smile through it. And that's kind of my mantra, man.
Love it, man. Great answer. So tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and say thank you. Give them your social. Yeah,
at the club, we're not allowed to post any content on social media, so I'm not much of a follow for golf instruction. But Jake Toliver on Instagram or something like that. I don't do the Twitter much. Yeah, I'm a little restricted as far as the social media outreach goes. It's mostly pictures of me surfing or my daughters. But hopefully someday we'll get into the social media stuff.
That's cool. I understand. Well, thanks so much for your time, man. I'll keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great work. I've always been a fan. I think we met, 4 or 5 years ago at the PGA show, and we've always kind of kept in contact. And I want to spend more time with you, man. You got to have me out to God's green earth over there and the beauty.
We would love it. I can't even tell you how much you've just impacted my career, and listening to this show has completely changed my teaching. You've had so many great guests on. You've done so much for our industry with this show. I can't even tell you, man. I really, really appreciate everything that you've done with this. You're taking it to the moon. All the guests that you've had on, it's definitely impacted my education as far as teaching goes. And I'm very, very grateful. So thank you. You're also a phenomenal interviewer, by the way.
Thanks, buddy. I've had a lot of practice trying to get better, but got a long ways to go. But I appreciate the kind words. That means so much to me, and basically keeps me going and doing the show. Then I appreciate guys like you that are supporting it.
Oh my God. Please keep doing it. Keep bringing guests on. I look forward to every single episode. It's so important for our industry. We've got to just keep talking to each other and keep growing the game and keep growing what we do. Because I think we do really have a great deal, and we get an opportunity to change people's golf, change people's lives. And it's a really fun deal. So I think we just need to keep expressing that and keep talking as coaches, keep learning. And it's exactly what you're doing. So I'm so grateful for you and everything you're doing. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me on. This is a treat.
Absolutely, bud. Thank you, my friend. You're the best.
You the man. Come out to LA soon.
For sure. What's up, everyone? Guru back here again with a couple of things before you jump off. First, big thank you to Jake for coming on the show and sharing his story and insights on golf instruction and coaching. That was awesome. And doing it from his new teaching building, which was super cool. Please give him a follow on social, even though I know he's not allowed to post much, at Jake Toliver Golf. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Golf Guru TV. That's at Golf Guru TV for all my social handles. Also, check out my website at golfgurutv.net, where you can find videos, articles, and more information on my teaching and coaching. If you have a question or comment, you can email the show at golfgurushow@gmail.com or just hit me up on the DM. Music on this episode were brought to you by Kevin MacLeod and Zach Mullett. And big shout out to my guy, Joel North, for an incredible production on this episode and also future episodes of the Golf Guru Show. Make sure you study, make sure you practice, and make sure you teach. And then more importantly, pass it on. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much for listening.